Kawhi Leonard, I mentioned the Philadelphia. I wrote about Jared McCain this week on Yahoo Sports, and I mentioned within that article how the Sixers ducked the tax again for 6 years in a row. They've done it. And there's a Morey quote from his post deadline presser where he's talking about how the 4 picks they got for McCain, the 1 first this year and 3 second-round picks in the future, they tried using those in other deals. And I haven't heard at the time, I hadn't heard who they were targeting. In the weeks since, I've talked to a bunch of executives around the league, and the name that popped up a couple of times was Kawhi Leonard as one of the players Philadelphia was making inquiries about in a potential deal at the deadline, where it would have been Paul George and picks for Kawhi Leonard. Nothing happened there. I don't think it was even close. I don't think the Clippers had any interest in that. I do think, like, if you're thinking along those lines, maybe they could have also tried to get more picks in a deal, tried to flip George for more picks in the opposite type of thing. Like maybe they could have went to the Warriors for Jimmy Butler and picks, but again, no interest there. The Warriors weren't trading Butler until the summer anyway. So, but clearly the Sixers were trying to compile picks for somebody out there, Tom. So just
I think we all know who that player was. I mean,
you think it was Giannis Antetokounmpo? That's who you think,
yes.
Giannis.
Yeah. I think knowing Daryl Morey and how he's always big game hunting, yes. I think it was Giannis. And the Kawhi stuff probably was happening, right? Like I think that's what Daryl Morey looks at is says, how do I get as many top 10 all-time players as I can on one team? And if he thinks Jared McCain is not that guy, he will try to go figure out a way to turn him into the assets that maybe I can go get a Giannis Antetokounmpo or a Kawhi Leonard. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And look, hearing what he said about how he traded Jared McCain and he's pretty sure that he was selling high on Jared McCain, I think you rightfully said in your column that if you think you're selling high on Jared McCain because of substitution patterns and playing time, then look at what he's doing over in OKC, and maybe you need to look at the head coach, because like selling high is quite the statement, right? To trade Jared McCain after what he did for the first couple months of the season last year before he got hurt, and then to see what he's doing over there now, you were rightful to call out and be like, that's a coaching problem. That's not a Jared McCain problem.
100% was. And ultimately, I think that deal is just going to end up looking worse and worse for Philadelphia. Because I'll tell you what, Tom, Jared McCain might not play 25 minutes per game every night for the Thunder in the playoffs when J-Dub is back and AJ Mitchell is back, but he's an option on the bench for Mark Daigneault to go to. There's going to be situations where Daigneault prefers the ball handling and creation of Jared McCain over more the movement shooting of Isaiah Joe, because McCain can also be a movement shooter. And there's going to be a night at some point in the playoffs where McCain drops 25 points or even 30 points. And that's going to be one of those nights where the Sixers probably home already in the second round or third round. They're going to be like, really? Where do we find guys like that? Or guys like Isaiah Joe, who, by the way, they had on their team before as well. 2 former Sixers on the Thunder. It's all, I mean, as I said in that column, the Sixers, everything's always weird there, but they did this one to themselves. And that's the bottom line with Philadelphia, unfortunately. And what is, hopefully they get Joel Embiid looking healthy again by the end of the year. I want them to be competitive. I want them to make a run, but this team seems demoralized. That Maxey quote he had after their loss on Tuesday night as well, where he's like, he like wasn't even asked about the trade deadline. He was just asked about the spirit of the team. And Maxey himself came out of nowhere and said, the deadline was tough for us. We got to get over it. And Tyrese Maxey wasn't saying that purely because, as he said, they lost a good friend and teammate in Jared McCain, a guy they all liked. He first said that because this organization is ducking the tax 6 years in a row. Last year, they traded 2 second-round draft picks to get under the tax. The year before that, they traded a second-round pick to get under the tax, to dump a salary. This year, they deal Jared McCain, and then they moved Eric Gordon as well, a veteran in that locker room. If you're a player on that team, Tom, you're demoralized. Joel Embiid, prior to the deadline, had said, I hope we don't duck the tax again. I feel like we have a real shot. I love the guys in this locker room. And then they go trade the most beloved guy in the locker room, Jared McCain, in order to get under the tax. Just That's got to be tough. Knowing the owner's not supporting your mission to win a championship.
Here's the crazy part. Imagine if Paul George didn't get banned for 25 games.
Oh boy, yeah.
Because that shaved $5 million of luxury tax payments because they don't get charged for his salary based on a league suspension. So imagine how much gutting that Daryl Morey had to do if they didn't have Paul George suffering that 25-game suspension. So that's why, on Basketball Illuminati, we were joking. We were just like, I mean, doesn't this kind of help all the luxury tax problem, that ducking the tax if Paul George gets suspended for 25 games? Because in that story for ESPN, Bobby Marks, he reported that they will save over $5 million of luxury tax payments, leaving the team a little over $1 million over the threshold, making it easier for the 76ers to dip out of the tax without harming the roster. Well, they did harm the roster because they needed to duck the tax. And Daryl Morey's got to eat it, man. He's got to eat it because he's the president of basketball operations. But as you wrote, it's an ugly look. It's a bad look for the franchise when you got billionaires trying to duck the tax. And one thing we should point out, it's not so much that they're ducking the tax, it's that they're locking in luxury tax payouts, revenue sharing payouts. And so when you frame it as, oh, they're ducking the tax, don't forget, they're also making themselves eligible to get millions of dollars in revenue sharing that they otherwise would not have gotten. So that's why these GMs are so willing to do it, is because those billionaires, man, they like their money.